Welcome to the Heart of Giving. We're glad you have joined us, and if you're looking to see that we have a new set here, it's because Sandra Holden made us get new furniture, so we're a little update today. Anyway, we're pleased that you're here and you're visiting with us as we have more and more nonprofits that we bring to you. And today, Shirley Wild is here. And now Shirley and I, it looked like we sent the memo to each other. We both ended up with turquoise jackets, but that makes us look like we're together anyway. I'd like her to tell us about the Steel Magnolias, which is a wonderful organization in the city of Long Beach. It's been here almost 20 years, I can't believe it. But Shirley, I know that you were the founder of Steel Magnolias. What prompted you to start a foundation?
The organization started because my best friend for 35 or so years was Dr. Geraldine Stramski. And she started the Stramski Children's Developmental Center. It was then called something else. It eventually was named for her. And then she passed away, and for 6 years the center sort of floundered. It almost was given up by the hospital. It doesn't.
And it was flourishing when she was alive?
Oh yes, oh yes. And it was a new concept. When she first started this, it was a new concept, a team approach for children with developmental issues, which I'll explain about developmental issues. But anyway, it was floundering because it always loses money. When you go to a doctor, a pediatrician, for an earache, it's maybe a 15-minute visit. When you go for a developmental issue, it may be an hour, maybe 2 hours to make the diagnosis. It's very difficult. And I'll sidetrack with developmental issues are all the things that happen to a child in utero when it's growing inside the mother's body. And there are things that...
Such as?
Spina bifida is one of the things that can go wrong. If something goes wrong in any one of the trimesters, almost everything else that is being developing at that time may have a problem as well. So our children have a multiplicity of problems. One of the big things that's very easy to explain is cleft lip and palate. And we have a whole team of audiologists, dentists, plastic surgeons, and we follow the children for 18 years and make sure as the face grows, so does the care that the child needs. And that's one of the things. That's the easiest to explain about developmental issues. Now, one of the big things is autism. There's a great deal going on in that area. There are many things that can go wrong as a child develops, and they're very hard to sort out sometimes. What they are. And then the Stramski Center then follows that child and makes sure they get the right care that they need.
Through the years?
Through the years.
Is that right?
And the big thing is, can you imagine bringing home a baby full of tubes and all of this, and you have other children there? It must be overwhelming for the people. And this is where the Stramski Center is very helpful to the parents and to the other children. And they have psychologists that will go to schools and help the educators to understand how to deal with some of the behavioral problems that also occur. So how I got started on it was when
it almost died.
When it almost died, they needed money. And it was very clear that the hospital couldn't support it any longer. At that time, we were losing about $90,000 a year, and which is understandable. The insurance only pays a small amount. So I said, well, the hospital isn't going to listen to us until we get some money in here. And so I just called a lot of my friends, and we came together, and we were going to do one event just to show the hospital that they had community support. And
20 years ago.
Yeah, and we had so much fun putting on that event. And our board chairman is Tony Gagliardi, and he is so creative and so much fun. And so we just have a close-knit group. We call it La Familia.
I should have had Tony with you today.
Well, I tried to get him here.
Oh, is that right?
He's just fresh back. No, he couldn't.
He's the only male.
No, we have several other males.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, they
Oh,
just
that's
kind
wonderful.
of flock to us. And now we have a men's alliance as well, and they support the golf tournament. That's a new project for us. And we make about, well, roughly $225,000 a year.
Is
now.
that
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
Shirley?
yeah.
My goodness.
And we have a unique thing, I think it's unique. We offer something you can't buy anyplace else, and that's for our big event, our signature event, and that's parties, extravaganza parties, and that's Tony's creativity.
That's one of your
fundraising events.
Fundraising events.
We have 3 fundraising events. One is the signature event, which is like the old-fashioned gala. The times have changed, and we don't call that anymore. But you can't buy this someplace else, so we have very high bids on that, and other things too. And then we have a home tour that is very popular.
Oh, I know.
Different population of the city is more interested in that. And now we have the golf tournament. We have a golf tournament that is totally sponsored by Mohammed Rahib. And then we can get other sponsorships in, and all the money that we bring in for the golfers is paid for by him.
Is that right?
Yes. And it's his golf tournament, but he turns all the profits to us.
Wow.
He doesn't touch any of the money, and he just pays for the green fees.
So the 3 things you have are the golf, the home tours, and then your gala.
Yes.
And the gala is where, instead of having an auction on things, you have, I know, I can remember, I've gone to a couple, where you have about 3 or 4 tables set up with a different theme on each table, and then that's what they bid on.
And then we have other auction items too.
And these parties or tables, like how many people can go to one?
Well, some of them are 20 people. One of a very popular one was to the Automobilia of Rick Lorenzen's. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's over 100 automobiles that are gorgeous. And then we had Sophia Riley supplied the food and the service, and we had a magnificent dinner there. And then we just had
in the facility with the animals or automobiles.
We had the whole thing to ourselves for the evening, and you know, of course,
that was fascinating.
That was fascinating.
So that was very successful.
Very successful. And one of ours was a party for 20. I think it was 20. It could have been 40 people, and it was the person who bought it decided she wanted it as a birthday party. And all of her guests were given pink boas. It was very cute.
Oh my!
And then the tables had big plumes on them and stuff. Tony's a very creative man, and all of our people are the servers and all that. We put the party on, so there's no expense, or relatively little expense for us. So we make a lot of money that way. And it's unique. I mean,
it is unique.
That's what I
I mean, you thought, would you make enough money to sell off 3 parties? And you have, that's
when
wonderful.
they're extravaganzas, you do, because you can't buy it someplace else.
And how many members do you have?
50. It's limited to 50. Of course, we have sustainers too above that, but it's limited to 50 because that's all that will fit in Tony's house. And Tony feeds us dinner at our meetings.
Oh my goodness.
He started that.
I didn't know that.
From the very beginning, he started that. I can remember Mari Hooper was our first president, and Tony and I, and I gathered all the people. And I was driving to his house for the first gathering, and I thought, oh, I didn't think of refreshments. Oh dear. So I called Tony on the phone on my way, and I said, Tony, should I stop and get refreshments? I didn't do this. And he said, oh, don't worry, I've got it covered. I walked in, and he had a waiter in white with a cummerbund and tie and a tray of champagne, and we had hors d'oeuvres. And that's how we started. So we decided, yes, we'd have this first event. And then everybody got ready to leave. He said, no, I have dinner ready. And he served us dinner that first night.
Oh,
and
for
it's
heaven's
never
sake.
changed.
Oh,
He's done
my.
it every month since.
And he does that every month?
He does that. And at that time, all the meetings were held in his home. Now they're not, we divide it when it gets too cold to be outside.
Goodness.
We go to another place. But anyway, the dinners still continue. We still do it. We meet in the evening instead of daytime because we have others. And the other thing is that we now have a whole new group of people our second generation, and I couldn't be happier because it's new, fresh ideas. And but to get back to the main cause of the Steel Magnolias, our medical director is Dr. Feldman, Gary Feldman, and his crew, his people, his staff are so dedicated. We have a tour through the facility, and our members come away so
This is at Memorial.
Yes, at Children's Hospital,
Yes.
Long Beach. And I should say that initially, I want to give credit to the Children's Memorial Hospital Auxiliary. They were the ones who got Jerry started. They funded her for all the years that she was.
Oh, is that right?
For all the years that she was alive.
And is that still an active group?
It's a very active group at the hospital, but they bowed out when we came. You know, they said, it's time for you to take over. So we did. Yes, so we did. Because they fund other facilities. They vary it all the time. But they should have a lot of credit for that. They did a wonderful job. And anyway, with Dr. Feldman, he has raised, we now see 10,000 patients a year.
Oh, my.
So we are.
And these are children that you follow.
Yes.
So the number could get much more.
Yes, it is growing, and he is just such a dedicated man, as is his staff. And it's, you leave just anxious to do more. And my overall goal is to have better recognition for what it is. Developmental issues are difficult to explain. So it's, and we don't have a national organization.
Publicly, it needs more exposure.
That's right. That's right. It needs more exposure. We need larger awareness of what it is. And somehow or other, we need to get more people involved. And so.
Well, I think that what you're doing and how it has evolved and how you've taken advantage of doing things that other people aren't doing has made a real difference. And you and Tony have been this strong force behind it from the very beginning and have not let go. And I'm sure you're glad that you're getting some probably younger people because they're going to have to take over this marvelous task.
And they're ready. It's wonderful.
And I agree with you. It's difficult to explain exactly what it is when you say developmental, and that's things that happen as they grow and they find out that they had something that was a need that they didn't even know they had.
We had a child born without an ear.
Oh my.
You know, that's one of the things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes it hard to raise funds is people like happy endings, and we don't always have happy endings. We have bettered a lot of people and families.
In their whole life. I mean, we could go on forever. I keep getting the cue. It says it's time to stop.
Well,
anyway.
You get me started, we don't stop.
Anyway, thanks so much, Shirley. It was wonderful to have you. I hope you've learned something new about Long Beach and the wonderful work that is being done by volunteers in this city to make our city better and healthier. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And the next nonprofit we have is something that I know you all know about. Something that's been in our city, I think, I'll ask, but around 40 years. And I'm so glad that we have Joey Perlmutter, who is the Vice President of Development Communications of the John Tracey Clinic. Now, this has been in Long Beach for as long as, well, I think it was started by Mrs. Tracey, and she needed help in her own way with her own children, and this wonderful thing started. And Joey, I'm so pleased that you're here because it's been such a strong part of the city, but yet it's not, and everybody knows what it is. When I say the name John Tracey Clinic, they would know what it does. And tell us about it, and tell me about you too.
Thank you so much for asking us to be here today because I love to talk about John Tracey Clinic.
Great.
Not only in Los Angeles, but our campus in Long Beach too, which has been a mainstay since the early 60s. So you're quite right, it has a reputation for being part of the Long Beach community. The beginning of John Tracey Clinic really reads like a love story. It was Spencer Tracey, the actor,
Yes.
and his wife Louise had a child named John who was born deaf. And in those days, children who were born with disabilities sometimes are institutionalized. They weren't part of the mainstream of society. And Louise was going to make sure that did not happen to her son, John. So she left her own promising stage career to go around the country and learn techniques for, in those days, just to teach John how to speak. And he then was able to, in fact, some of those techniques she learned are still in practice today. And much of it was lip reading then. They didn't have the electronics that we have
Or
now.
sign language.
Correct, but she wanted him to speak. So she taught him, and because of that ability and the notoriety of the Traceys, other mothers started going to Louise saying, my child too is deaf. What did you do? How did you do that? And there were correspondence courses that she would write to people, letters back and forth. This is what you do to teach consonants, vowels, how to lip read, how to communicate back. And based upon that, it started a movement of auditory verbal way to communicate when you're deaf. Now, curiously, now 1 in 1,000 children is born deaf, and 90%
Is that right?
of
1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000 is born deaf, and typically 90% of those children who are born deaf or hard of hearing have both parents who have typical hearing. So you can imagine these parents now find they've just given birth to a child who cannot hear, and they don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
And the hospital now has a hearing screening program so that as soon as the child is born, before they're discharged home, they have a newborn screening test. If they don't pass that test, they are referred to one of 4 places, John Tracey Clinic being one. So we get children in John Tracey Clinic on day 2 of life. They're
No, is
brand
that
new
right?
babies. Their
That-
parents are frantic.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask, is that how old would you be before they found out?
You'll know immediately.
Is that right?
So if they come to John Tracey Clinic and they don't pass again, and if the parent chooses the communication path that is auditory verbal, to listen and to speak, and if they choose then to align themselves with John Tracey Clinic, then starts the process. And this is parent-centered process, which means parents are your first and best teachers of your child.
Now, when you said hearing and speaking, it's actually speaking they're working on.
And hearing, because most children now, if they choose the auditory verbal approach, will have cochlear implants or hearing aids. So they can hear electronically, whereas in John Tracey's generation, that wasn't available. But children now, if they choose the auditory verbal approach, will have hearing aids or cochlear implants, and then we use that technology with learning how to speak and listen.
No, but what would she have done years ago when there were no cochlear implants?
Correct.
It was all, you
were lip reading.
lip reading.
Yes. So she taught lip reading to John Tracey, her son, and then he was able to communicate through that. Probably not likely to hear, but if he could lip read and could speak so that you could understand his speech, because he went on to graduate from college. I mean, he had a successful life as an art illustrator. So he continued to thrive with the knowledge that she gave him so that he could be part of the mainstream community. But because John Tracey Clinic is parent-centered, we rely on teaching the child's parents how to work with them at home, because we see those children for an hour or 2 a day. It's once they get home, and once we empower you, the parent, that is the mainstream, the foundation for that child's success. Once you involve the parents, everything, the whole dynamo shifts, and you now
And
have a
attitudes.
success. The attitude, you know you're part of a team. So we teach the parents how to teach the children, and we teach the children. And this is everything from psychological support to occupational therapy, preschool classes, mentoring, tutoring. It's a wide range of speech pathology. It's a wide range of services. Now, what everyone wanted to do was to say, Louise, open up a John Tracey clinic in my community. And she said, you know, we can't clone ourselves, but I will teach you what to do, and I empower you to do it. And that's what happened in Long Beach. Pardon me, in 1966, the citizens of Long Beach said, we heard about this, some of our families have benefited from this, and we want to have this as well.
In our city.
In Long Beach, and it started off on Pacific Street and then Redondo, and it's now on Wardlow. And the community got together from a little office building to buying what looked like a little home so they could have, you know, more homey comforts while the child is there. So in Long Beach now we provide audiologic testing. Those children who are newly diagnosed and parents will go to our Long Beach facility in brand newborns. I mean, they're like this. And then children up through age 5 will go to our Long Beach facility. They get the audiology testing, from the newborn testing to continued testing, and they work with our very experienced staff, the parents and the children. And it's play interaction, it's education, it's teaching parents how to enunciate with their children, how to get cues back from your children, so that when they go home, they can continue that pattern of education so that the child is always reinforced. And it's so gratifying to see, too, how many fathers are involved. You can't just take your child and say, here, fix them. This involves the whole family, and where it used to be mothers primarily were the caregivers.
And you do all of that at your facility here in Wardlow.
Oh, absolutely. The fathers are there, the mothers are there, sometimes the grandparents are there. Whoever is part of that child's life and support team are all there, and the tools are there.
How many do you have now that in your facility?
Over the years, I would say easily 2,000 families have gone through our Long Beach facility.
And like right now, how many are you helping? Because you have to be limited if you have people that are there for years that help you.
Well, again, the children who are there go through up to age 5.
I see.
And then by age 5, most of them, 90% or so of those children, are mainstreamed and can go out into preschool with their hearing peers.
Yeah, and with implants now, that's
with
made
cochlear
it easier.
implants. And it's also the shift in seeing children being proud of their apparatus. The little girls have pink blinking lights on them. It's something that can be incorporated into your hairdo if you choose not to show it. But if you want to show it, I mean, it's the greatest new trick. And everyone has something coming out of their ears these days anyway, and so everybody's just sort of
You're right.
part of the new trend. But it's been a remarkable legacy for the Traceys. John Tracy's sister Susie is still on our board. And when you work somewhere where there is a family name attached to it, and certainly a living member of the family, there is a legacy that we uphold. There is a reputation. We don't need to protect it because it speaks for itself, but we honor it. It's the way things are done. The culture is very, very ingrained.
And do you have volunteers working there?
We have some volunteers who read to the children and who enact with some play. Our biggest challenge is always, just like all the other nonprofits you've been so gracious in hosting here, is fundraising.
Oh, absolutely.
Finding donors who are interested in early childhood intervention. The sooner that we can understand their hearing loss and take steps to help them on the path that they choose, the sooner that they will be able to correct that.
This is fascinating, and it goes so fast, but how do you fund?
Primarily through foundations and individuals.
I see.
And in Long Beach in particular, the Long Beach Community Foundation, the Children's Benefit League have been marvelous supporters of ours.
Wonderful.
We're so thankful for their philanthropy and their generosity.
That's wonderful.
And we solicit foundations. We have our website. We have a few events that we conduct.
You don't do like golf tournaments and things like that?
We did at one point, and then it stopped, and
like
we're
that.
looking to bring that back into the fore. to educate people about the advantage of early identification and intervention, and to, when people realize, when they see these little faces and see what can be done, and if you take a child who the parents were so taken unaware that they were going to have a child, and we provide hope, guidance, and encouragement. Those were Louise Tracey's 3 words. We will give you hope, guidance, and encouragement. You are not alone here. Our parents provide support for one another. And you start in thinking, oh my goodness, I'm the only one doing this. And the next thing you know, they have empowered you. And when the next group comes in, you're telling them, let me show you what I just learned.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
tremendous support.
Oh, like how many do you have that you're working with right now?
There's about 150 families in our parent-infant program and some additional families with preschool. And so you get to know the kids there. We have children, we also have international summer sessions where people come from literally around the world. And then when they realize there's nothing in their country that does this, people have moved here from Mongolia, from Egypt, from Turkey, and they give up their lives and their jobs and they say, this is where my child can get help. This is where I'm going to come.
Oh my.
And they turn their lives around. It's just remarkable.
Isn't that wonderful? And you've been involved how long?
I've been there for a few years. I'm very much
And
attracted
you're
to the
committed.
mission.
I can tell.
You can't not be.
You did a wonderful job. I didn't have to work at all. You just took it over, and I love it. You're a good salesperson, and thank you for your heart.
Thank
in
you
doing
so much
that.
for inviting
You bet.
me.
I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you, Beverly.
The last 2 we've had were for children, and I just warms your heart at what you're doing. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Haven't they been good? Our children are better because of these wonderful groups that help them. And we in Long Beach, I think, realize how important that is. And it's also important that the groups are working so hard on the children's behalf. We'll see you later.